When you're in your mid-20s, you really only have three options.
Get married.
Get a master's.
Or run a marathon.
Hi, I'm Francis.
And I'm Brian.
And welcome to this week's Outside episode of the Zone 2 podcast,
where we explore all there is to learn about the world of running from Francis's front porch.
Let's do it. All right, folks, you know the drill. If you like this episode, don't forget to like the episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Don't forget to, if you want to, subscribe to our newsletter. We release it every Monday at 6:30 in the morning. It's got a bunch of great information about our upcoming episode, as well as some interesting things happening in the world of running.
Yeah, I think in the future we kind of want to expand the newsletter to have a little bit of a news segment when Francis and I have a little bit more maybe time and resources to put into this. But right now, if you like consider it a personal, handwritten by me, love letter every week right to your inbox. And all you have to do is sign up. And you can even sign up with like a spam email address. It doesn't matter, but sign up. It's not spam. We only send emails once a week. You don't have to pay for it. It's free.
It's
free.
On Substack. It's 100%
sign
free.
Up.
Yeah.
You should.
And it's great. I mean, like if there's things happening in Boston, we'll give it a shout out there.
We'll give it a shout out. I think maybe we'll do some plugs for if any prior or future guests host events that people want to go run at. I think we ought to do it.
100%.
But no, it's a good little weekly recap. I put some pictures in there too. So if you're like, what do Francis and Brian look like? Not that anyone is curious, but you can see it.
You don't want to know.
You don't want to know.
Yeah, I'm hideous. That's why I have a podcast and not like a vlog or anything. I have a face for radio.
And a voice for silent
film. Yeah. Long story short, I should not be recording myself in any way, shape, or form.
But here he is, and here you are listening.
I know.
Let's talk about our weeks. Francis, you've had a bit of a rough week. Talk me through it.
Yeah, I've had a rough week. So it all started on Sunday. I went out for an 18-mile workout. 18-mile long run with some speed in there. And I got about 6 miles in. I'm down by the river, down by the Esplanade. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just an off day or whatnot. I don't think it was an off day. But I had a lot of pain. I had a lot of pain in my legs, and it got to the point where I didn't want to continue for fear of injuring myself.
What kind of pain is this? Is this an existing, like you had some shin splinty issues a few months ago? Is this the same thing, or does this feel like a new issue?
So it was an exacerbation of a previous injury. And yeah, I got to like mile 6.5 and it like every step hurt. And that's not good. As a runner, you know this. That's not good.
That's not good. You can only live in denial for so many miles.
It's true. And for only so many steps. And there are things like, obviously running isn't always going to be comfortable. And I completely understand that. But this felt like a different level of uncomfortable where, yeah, it felt just like pain every step. And so I decided to stop, and I took a bike home. I blue biked home, got a terrible sunburn because I didn't put on sunscreen, unfortunately, and then got home and started talking to my coach. And yeah, he was like, yeah, you should really take some time off, do some cross training. So for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I was on the stationary bike at the gym, kind of doing 45 minutes to an hour at a time, which honestly kind of sucks. I mean, the stationary bike is great for cross training. It's good for your cardio, but from like a mental health / like ease of use, it sucks.
If only there was a way for you to ride a bike outside.
I know. So, and then guess what? I hated the stationary bike so much, I decided to buy a bike
from Claire Tinker.
From Claire Tinker, who we've mentioned on the podcast, but we've never actually like had her on.
I feel like we should.
Yeah, we definitely should at some point. But yeah, I bought a bike from her, and now I'm kind of like trying to figure out what that looks like for me as a biker / as a cross trainer, but also like wanting to use the bike to just, enjoy the outdoors and get around Boston.
It sounds like you have a little bit to learn as far as bike etiquette goes. Francis said earlier that he took his bike for, and I quote, a ride around the block, and he said he almost got hit by a car just going around the block. So maybe we'll take him after recording today. We'll take him for a little lesson.
Yeah.
I teach him all the hand signals, how to turn left, turn right, stop, flip people off, all those. Yeah, no, they honked at me. I felt a little bad. But, and again, Boston is such a pedestrian heavy, biker heavy city that it's really, I think it's like super important, like you said, to learn the rules of the road. Biker heavy, not necessarily biker friendly, but we work on it.
That's true. Yeah, so that was my week. Definitely a departure from the norm, but also I think it was kind of nice to break things up a little bit. Obviously concerned about training readiness, but easy to get that back.
Yeah.
The important thing is to heal. So that was my week. Nice departure from the norm. Definitely different, but not worse. So yeah, how was your week?
I had a good week. I feel like I had a pretty chill week, kind of similar to the week before. I only went for a couple runs. My mission of only running with people this summer, or this spring and summer, is still continuing. On Thursday, I went to Heartbreak and did a little mini fartlek workout with
Sounds kind of smelly.
Coach Devin. It was a little smelly. What was really smelly was when I looked down at my watch in the middle of one of the intervals and my heart rate was 204. It started with a 2.
Why?
If I had a patient with a heart rate like that, Francis, I would need help.
Yeah.
So
Why was it so high?
Because I was running really fast and
You were running
I
too
was probably
fast. It sounds like.
dehydrated. I was going a little too fast, but
Yeah.
it was a good workout. It was fun. It was nice to go see everybody. And then Saturday morning, Francis and I went together to Bricklayers Union.
That was fun.
Ran with Bricklayers Union.
Yep.
That had a Nike sponsored event. Our dear friend of the pod, Russell Wells, was there. Gave us some shoes to trial. We were chatting him up a little bit. And nice to meet some friendly faces.
Got some coffee. Got some coffee. Got some shirts.
Got some shirts before Porch Fest yesterday afternoon. But here we are on Sunday. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there listening. We're all
Shout out to my mom.
And to my mom.
And to your mom. All the moms.
All the moms.
But ours specifically.
Francis, yeah. So, folks, if you're listening, Francis and I are sitting on his front porch in Brighton. It is a gorgeous 70-something degrees out here today. Mm-hmm. The sun is a-shining down. There's a cool breeze. The birds are chirping. The city is alive with the sounds of spring. The sounds of music, perhaps.
You should make a musical.
Someone already did that.
Oh.
Francis has a nice hedge of bushes in front of his house. I don't want to beat around the bush too much, though. Our friend Aidan Kindopp is here, former collegiate runner for the University of Rhode Island and recent finisher of his debut marathon alongside Rachel and I ahead of Rachel and I, at the Rhode Races Newport Marathon a couple weeks ago. Welcome to the podcast, Aidan.
Yeah, welcome to the pod, Aidan.
Francis, Brian, it's a pleasure to be here.
Aidan, we kind of ask all of our guests the same intro question, which is basically, what's your background in running? How did you find your way into it? What did it look like running, whether it was in college, middle school, elementary school? Where did you start?
Yeah, for sure. So I started running in middle school, got into it in, 6th grade. I was a hockey player up until then, and there was a point where I was doing, I think, soccer, hockey, cross country all at once, and my parents said, enough with that, you have to choose a sport, and running it was. So ran in middle school, then got to high school, continued doing it, and had an okay high school career, and it was my senior year of high school. When I was looking at colleges, I wasn't really planning on running in college, actually. And then senior year of high school indoor track was when I started kind of breaking out, and I started thinking, well, maybe I could run in college. And so I was not recruited per se. I recruited myself. I went and talked to coaches at the schools that I'd already applied to, and at the University of Rhode Island, they said that they had a spot on me for the team, and it was a perfect academic program as well. So got myself there. That was in 2019, and then spent 4 years on the track team at the University of Rhode Island.
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting story. I feel like most people who run in college get recruited and go through the whole coaches reaching out to them, and then they get offered sort of the scholarship / the position on the team. I wonder too, what were you running in high school in terms of time that sort of made you a viable option to those coaches? Because it's sort of, I mean, it's a give and take. Like, they're not just letting anyone onto the team. You have to be at a certain caliber. So like, what were you running like in high school?
So going into my senior year, I don't actually remember my PRs, but I do remember having some like breakthrough races, like I was saying. And I ran 2:32 in the 1K, and that was kind of my start into thinking, well, maybe I could keep doing this. And then I won the state meet my senior year, the indoor 1K, New Hampshire, so small, but not insignificant. So that was kind of like, that was like the moment where I thought, maybe I can do this. And then outdoor track my senior year, I ran like a 156 800 and a 422 mile, I think. So that was the point where I was like taking it more seriously, and I was reaching out to the coaches and getting responses. I was a non-scholarship recruit at the end of the day. So I actually spent 2 years of running collegiately for fun, I guess you could say. And then after 2 years, I was on a partial athletic scholarship.
Very cool. I would second what Francis was saying about your recruitment process coming from high school. It's interesting because it sounds like you were in that weird space between being fast enough that you were being recruited, but being slow enough that you knew you couldn't run at that level. So it seems like it was very much up to your efforts and the work that you were putting in to try to get those doors open.
Oh, for sure. And then I guess also shout out to my little brother at this point, who was, when my senior year of high school, he was a freshman, and he actually beat me all cross-country season. I beat him one race our entire cross-country season as a senior, and he was a freshman. So I had someone behind me the whole time, or I guess in front of me, motivating me to get out there and keep working.
Healthy sibling rivalry goes a long way.
Oh, for sure.
Doesn't it?
Absolutely.
This is an aside, but it's interesting hearing you say you won states for New Hampshire, but it's New Hampshire. It's a small state. And my friend from UVM, John Ferry, if you're listening, he was a 3-season varsity athlete in high school. He won states for wrestling in New Hampshire, but then said the same thing where it was like you go to the state meet and he's like big fish in a small pond, like crushed everybody. And then when he would go to beyond that, it was very humbling for him to be like, oh, there's a lot of people that aren't in New Hampshire.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I always joke with my friends from Pennsylvania that even we would go to New England's after the state meet, and that's still smaller than the Pennsylvania state meet, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's all about perspective.
It's all about perspective. So we've gotten to college now. You're at the URI, you're running. You said your last 2 years you were on a partial athletic scholarship. Can you tell us a little bit more about your experiences at URI as a collegiate runner? What were you running? What sort of times were you putting up? Talk me through it.
So my first year, I raced in uniform, but it was cut short due to COVID. So that was 2019 going into 2020. And then sophomore year was kind of the same thing where we were coming back from COVID and had training pods. So it was a little bit interesting. We weren't an entire team, but as a distance squad, we were able to train together for the most part. And then my junior year was when things started coming together and I started scoring at our conference championships. So I was running at that point mostly the 1K and the mile. I ran a 226K on a flat track, which is pretty quick for a flat track. That's probably theoretically or on paper, my fastest time. And then my senior year transitioned. Well, actually, I kind of got hurt between my junior and senior year dealing with some Achilles issues. So it ended up being the mile my senior year, and I ended up running 3:51 in my last collegiate race for the 1500, so that's about a 4:09 equivalent.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That's unbelievable. That is ridiculously fast. Kudos to you on Strava and in real life.
Thank you.
So you were talking about your times. It was interesting having Peter on last week and talking about was still very much in the thick of it as a collegiate runner, putting up this very high, consistent weekly mileage as a collegiate athlete. I'm curious to hear what your experience was like, what it was like for you being a collegiate runner, and I'm just wondering if you could share a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. So I also had kind of an interesting collegiate career from a coaching perspective. The coach at URI, who had been there for, I think, 40 years, retired 2 years into my career there. And so that was a big change, a big shakeup, not just for me, but for the entire program. And so we went from kind of like the old school coach to a very new, young coach who ran for Providence College, a distance powerhouse, if you're in the collegiate running scene. And he completely changed the perspective of the program on the distance side. So we went from more of a short and fast, the old school style, to a long and slow. So as a miler, my peak mileage, only for 1 week, not sustained. I did hit 93 miles once, but my sustained mileage was between 60 and 70 miles on average.
Like, that's what I'm hitting right now in my peaking. I'm not even hitting that right now in my peaking phase for my marathon. I feel like the most I've run is like just over 50. And to me, that's like a lot. But I guess it's something that you work up to.
Oh, for sure.
Like, you can't just go out and run 50 miles in a week.
Definitely not.
Anyone who's just getting into running, doing that, like, you're probably going to hurt something, right?
That said, what my coach said, the new coach, the younger coach, he said, this is a quote, anyone can run 70 miles a week if you run 5 and 5. every day.
Is that, 5 in the morning, 5 in the afternoon?
Yeah, he's a big doubles guy.
Oh, yeah. I guess I wonder too, like, is doubles, how do you get to that point? Because I would be concerned with burnout in myself. Like, and I would also be concerned with injury in myself. Like, how do you work up to the point where you're running doubles?
I think that doubling is actually good for load management, because if you're running that many miles, I think it's less stressful to break it up into different runs. So if you need to get 13, 14 miles on a day, it's much easier to do 8 and 5, 9 and 5, rather than like a midweek long run, in my opinion.
I guess the only argument I can think of against doing doubles is the time it takes, where you look at when you go for a run, it's not just the time that you're spending running. If you're doing it right, you're spending that time stretching, you're spending that time warming up, you're spending that time cooling down. There's getting your stuff on, showering afterwards if you like to be hygienic. So in terms of a time commitment, and as a busy student, I'm sure that it's hard to always find time to do doubles, but in terms of load management, I think it's all part of that time management, all part of that game.
For sure. But it was a huge privilege to have had the opportunity to run in college and have those resources kind of put out in front of me, and having that partial athletic scholarship where I could kind of like devote my time and say, I'm kind of getting paid to be here and doing this. So it was a big time commitment for sure. But as I said, it was definitely a privilege as well to have that time to be able to put into the sport.
Yeah, and I think that sentiment kind of echoes something that our previous guest, Peter, was saying last week, which was, Brian and I were talking about how we were both in awe of his athletic abilities. And he was saying how, as good as he is, he thinks a lot of it is, obviously down to natural talent, but also the fact that he's been given a space to run and to be supported by so many great athletic facilities managers, coaches, that sort of thing, and also teammates. So I think it is one of those things where it's like, yeah, anyone can do that as long as you have the right support system.
Oh, for sure.
And I think it's nice to hear colleges that do support their athletes in that way.
So Aidan, we're talking about training. Let's transition then to talk about racing. I know you had some thoughts about your personal experiences racing, I guess, through high school and through college, and that'll transition to what we talk about next. But I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the race day experience as a collegiate athlete and what that was like for you.
Yeah, it was a lot different. I think that in high school, I did enjoy racing. And then I don't know what switched in my brain, but quite on the contrary to what Peter said last week on the podcast, I did not really enjoy racing in college. I loved running, continue to love running, but I did not love racing. And I think that a lot of that was kind of the mental pressure I put on myself, and a little, to a certain extent, that was put on me by the program. But I would get really anxious and stressed out before racing. And I think that sometimes you can look at collegiate athletes and think that they have it all together, but we don't. We're real people. So I would sometimes wake up and be super stressed, especially conference race weekend. I would wake up and try and eat breakfast, and it wouldn't happen. And I'd get to 5 p.m. at the end of a day, having raced twice, sometimes 3 times. And I'd be like, wow, I had a pack of gummies to eat, which was not healthy. And I didn't have any eating issues per se. It was just the nerves on race day where I could not get it down. So for me, racing was a really stressful experience, both mentally and physically. So it was definitely, I appreciate now kind of being away from that scene.
Yeah, I feel like I relate to that a lot. I feel like I'm someone who, my appetite is very much driven by how I feel in the moment mentally. And it can be really difficult to make myself eat, even though I know that I need that, eating will make me feel better in my run, and that's exactly what my body needs at that moment. But if I'm stressed out, whether it's work, whether it's life, you name it, it's all of a sudden my stomach will turn over and I can't get anything down.
Yeah.
And I know that it's hurting me, but then also the idea of eating kind of is not appealing anymore. So yeah, it's tough.
I know exactly.
It's really tough. And then you end up going for a run. You're like, oh my God, this sucks.
Yep.
That hurt. I should have eaten at least a graham cracker or something. Okay. Very interesting. A very different perspective on racing. So after you graduated college, you took a year off of running. Tell us a little bit about like the reason for taking the break and also kind of like how it impacted your relationship to the sport overall.
Yeah. So after I finished my last race, I took some time off of running, and then that summer I ran a little bit because I was still living with some of my teammates. And then I went to Europe for a year to kind of finish up my undergraduate education and finish up a second degree. And it was there where I kind of wanted to like take back my life because it was so dominated by running. So I continued to run a little bit, maybe like 2 or 3 times a week, but much less than the 6 to 7 days a week, doubling, all of the above. And I kind of like rediscovered other things that I enjoyed, like rock climbing or ice skating, and to a certain extent biking. Then at the end of my time in Europe, I actually took like 1 month completely off, and that was the longest I had gone without running since middle school. And that was really big for my mental health and just like kind of a reset. And then when I got back to the US in August, I got back into running, and I knew that that was what I wanted to do, going into grad school and moving to Boston, and where I wanted to reconnect with the running community, especially in a city that's so driven by that community here.
The community, and I mean, we talk about this on every episode, but the community around running here in the city is just unbelievable.
Incredible.
It's just amazing. It's really exciting to be a part of it, and we're glad that you're a part of it as well. So you moved to Boston almost a year ago at this point for grad school. Running became a regular part of your routine again. I have some couple questions about this. I'm curious. So you took this time off. You had gone from the point where you were training extensively at school. Then you took a year where you ran very little, and then a month where you didn't run at all. When you started running again, was there any frustration or surprise in how it felt to be running, that you weren't maybe as fast as you had been the last time you'd been doing it so regularly?
Oh yeah, it was awful. You know, I always tell people that are trying to get into running that running sucks at the start. And it had been so long since I had had to go through that, but I did have to go through that once again, and it took me at least 3 weeks to like feel like, okay, this is normal. That first week back was painful.
I think in previous episodes I've called that the hump that you have to get over.
Yeah.
And that's something that until this year when I moved to Boston, it never stuck for me, where I had never ran long enough and consistently enough that I got to the point where I could enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And this year has been the first time that I have been like, okay, I actually like this. This is part of my routine now. So I can totally relate to that from a recency standpoint. So when you moved back to Boston, running became a part of your regular routine again. How was your relationship with running different from your time as a collegiate athlete?
That's a good question. I felt much more in control of my own training plan. I was running when I wanted to and like on my own schedule. So I'll admit, if it was raining, there were days where I just decided I wasn't going to run because I didn't want to run in the rain. But when I first came to Boston, I didn't really know anyone in the running community. So I was running mostly by myself. And I would see people out and about. And then it was actually like some people in my cohort, in my grad cohort, that I would see out running. And funny enough, it was actually a former podcast guest, Rachel. I asked her one day about run clubs. Actually, I think I was looking up run clubs on my computer, and she was sitting behind me in class. And then we started talking about run clubs, and that was how I got into the Boston run club scene.
I feel like no matter how you stumble into it, it's always fun. And it doesn't matter. Like, I know when I was searching for it, I was like, oh, these guys are going to hate me when I show up to run club, and they're going to yell at me and tell me how I'm a fake runner. But no, actually, I don't know why I was so afraid of that. But everyone in Boston who runs is like they're probably some of the most welcoming people you'll ever meet. And that kind of goes, I know the fun fact last week was that runners on average are generally more conscientious people. And I think that that's 100% true. And there's so many examples of that here. You know, no matter how you find your way into it, Aidan, we're glad that you're here in the running community. Yeah.
I'm glad to be here.
Good. You should be. It's a privilege. So a couple of weeks ago, I had the privilege of seeing you race the Newport, Rhode Island Marathon very competitively. And you had mentioned to us earlier that this was after a 2-year break from racing. And you also mentioned that, you know, racing was never your favorite thing. what made you decide to come back to racing, and kind of how did that play a role in your training plan for this as well as your execution of your race day strategy?
For sure. I, starting grad school in Boston, it was my goal to run a marathon in my time at grad school, and eventually the goal was to run the Boston Marathon. And the timeline was a little accelerated. I must say, I was not planning on doing that this year, but in conversations over dinner parties with Brian, Rachel, Kate, all of the above, Francis too, I was inspired to run a marathon. And I thought, what better way than to go back to Rhode Island and do that in Newport.
Was this before the podcast or after the podcast?
I think you made the decision before the podcast.
Oh, so we can't say the podcast inspired you?
Although we can retroactively... The podcast
You're welcome.
will retroactively take credit for...
Yeah, we can take credit for that.
The podcast can retroactively take credit for inspiring.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, so it was probably a pretty non-traditional training block for most marathons, as I never got my mileage super high, and I enjoyed running with friends during the week and all of the above, going to run clubs. And what I did was keep the long run sacred. So that I always did alone and very intentionally. And often that intention ended up being the long run was a very fast run because I was not doing workouts during the week either.
And when you say your mileage never got crazy high, what were you running at, I guess, peaking during the training cycle?
Between 40 and 50, if I remember correctly. But I really did not keep track of it at all. The only thing I kept track of was how far my long run was going to be and making sure that I was prepared to run it quickly.
Okay, there you go. I feel like 40 to 50 is still a lot of mileage, and that's what I feel like I was running for my training block too, but I also know, coming from the background where you were probably doing a lot of 60, 70 plus mile weeks, it's definitely less than I feel like your body was probably like, all right, like let's get up here if we're going to be training for something, let's do it. But keeping that long run sacred is that's a good way to go about it, and I think that kind of helps get you in that training metronome of every week, regardless of what else is happening in your week, still having that metric to see how's training going, how far can I go, how fast can I go. It's good to have that.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about race day. So I had a blast. This was my first marathon experience too. Very humbling in a lot of ways. I'm curious if you could talk us through race day for you. What was it like for Aidan? Waking up, what your goal was for the race, how you thought the day would go, and just talk us through the race. I want to hear everything.
Yeah, for sure. So I woke up and I was staying with one of my friends who also ran at URI, and being my first race back after 2 years, it was kind of funny. My brain went back into race mode, and I made myself a big bowl of oatmeal like I had prepared and done for all my long runs, and I could barely eat it. And I was talking to my friend, and he sat me down. He said, "Look, man, go out there and have fun. You're not running collegiately anymore. You're running for yourself. It's not for anyone else." And that really grounded me. So shout out Cole Baker for that. But he said that, it really calmed my nerves, and I was able to finish my oatmeal. And
anyone who's ever eaten a bowl of oatmeal knows that that's the real marathon.
That is the real marathon. So after the oatmeal, I jogged to the start line. I was about a mile away, so I used that as my warm-up. And I took a gel at the start line as well. And my goal going into the race was to Boston qualify. So I knew that that was about 2:55. The bigger goal was to test myself and see where I was at. So we can break it down a little bit more, but as with everyone else who's been on the podcast, I think I went out a little bit too fast.
Yeah, that seems like a common theme for the debut marathoners.
That's okay. Lesson learned. I went out a little bit too fast, but I split about an hour 15 for the half marathon.
Holy moly.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And was in the lead at this point and was feeling good, I will say, through half. But unfortunately, there was still half of a marathon to run. So I led through mile 20, at which point I was no longer leading and walking a little bit and looking at my watch. And the only thing that kept me going was that I was like, I think I can still Boston qualify. but I have never wanted to stop running more than in the last 6 miles of that marathon.
And when you say you were leading through mile 20, you mean you were in first place, right?
That's correct.
That's crazy, because I remember the runners coming through at the half point, and I was with Kate and Claire, and we were like, was that Aidan? And then like you blazed through, and then we waited like a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and then the next guy showed up. So like the lead that you had through the half marathon was very substantial. It sounds like all the way through mile 20 was like very substantial. So I mean, that in of itself is an accomplishment.
Thank you.
Yeah, regardless of how your marathon went and where you placed, which I think you still placed like what, 14th?
I think it was 15th.
5th? Still.
But who's counting?
Not
like
I.
overall for a marathon to place in the top 20, like that's ridiculous, especially for your first. So like all of that in of itself is an accomplishment. So.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So for anyone listening, if you wanted to hear a little bit more about the Newport Marathon, we did a race day debrief with Rachel, who also ran the Newport Marathon. That's episode 12, if you go back a little bit in Spotify. Talking about the course, though, Aidan. So something in that episode that we talked about is how it psychologically affected both Rachel and I think we agreed at the half point of that race, running past the finish, and then having to go do that second half of the course, which objectively, not the most fun place to be running. It was really, like that out and back from miles like 16 to 24, we were just running on like suburban whatever in like outside Newport, was not my favorite place to be running. The hills were brutal. I remember
The hills
feeling
were
very similarly.
The hills were so brutal.
It was really brutal. So when you hit that 20-mile mark, you said there was some walking. You said the only thing that kept you going was this idea of Boston qualifying. What was going through your head at this point? Did you feel, and I think we talked about this, did you feel this shift in your mind of your priority being, I have this time, I have this goal, I need to keep going, I have to keep going, to, I remember getting to the point where I did not care about my time anymore. I just wanted to survive. It felt like survival at that point because every fiber of your being, like you said, is telling you to stop.
Oh,
so
100%.
What was going through your head?
Exactly that. It was very much survival instincts kicking in.
So Peter last week was talking about the psychology of leading a race and how nobody wants to lead a race. What was it like for 20 miles leading, not knowing how big a lead you had for much of that, and then eventually getting past at that point where you hit the wall and you had to slow down?
It's actually interesting. When I was listening to Peter's episode, I was reflecting. I am one of the few people that actually enjoys front running. So almost nobody likes doing that. I find more peace in leading a race than following other people because I get to dictate what's happening, which is much more important on a track than on a marathon that's 26 miles over the course of hours rather than minutes and where seconds matter on the track. But I wasn't planning on going out as hard as I did, but the pace just came to me at the start and I just never looked back until mile 20.
And then you took a real long look back and regretted every decision made up until that point. I'm sure. That's so interesting. Yeah. I keep hearing just different flavors of the same story. I can't wait to run my marathon.
You're going to have so much fun, Francis.
I know. That's one way to put it. Type 2 fun, I've heard.
So you said a 1:15 half split you ran. What did you end up finishing with? Because you did finish.
I did finish. I finished in 2:46, so quite possibly the most painful way to run 2:46 out there.
But he did it, folks.
I did do it.
And that's a BQ. So that transitions to my next question, Aidan. So we've asked all the other marathon debutantes on the pod if they want to run another one. Sounds like your goal was to run Boston. I would assume you're still planning to run Boston. How do you feel looking back after your first marathon? Do you see yourself doing this semi-regularly? Want to do another beyond Boston? Or are you going to wait and see how the next training cycle goes?
The plan is to run Boston, assuming I make it on the time qualifier, and then TBD after that.
A 9-minute cutoff would be insane.
That would be insane, but
I don't know. They could do it.
crazier things have happened.
Yeah, they did a 7-minute cutoff last year?
It was like 6:30, yeah.
So fingers crossed that
But they
9
also
minutes.
decreased the qualifying time by 5 minutes. So
That's
I feel
true.
like a 5-minute qualifying time decrease and a 9-minute cutoff would be heinous.
Maybe the whole world is just getting faster.
I've been saying that. You look at the high schoolers these days, they're running so much faster than anyone was when I was in high school.
There's high schoolers running like sub 4 miles now, right?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Go look at the Australians, they're crazy right now.
Why? Like what is it?
What are they feeding them down under?
Nobody knows.
They're probably eating the kangaroos.
Dingo babies.
Maybe. I wonder why that is, because I mean, I think part of it has to do with the amount of technology and research that's going into running right now. It's like obviously having a huge boom, and so with all that added attention, I think there's a lot of resources being put behind making the right training plans, concocting the right fueling solutions for people. I know Morton has a lot of great products. You were using UCAN products for your marathon.
Correct.
So with this like focus and with all the resources out there, if you were to run another marathon, what are some of the things that you would change about your training strategy and your race day execution?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, as you said, fueling. Like I said, I took a gel at the start line, and then I had 3 gels during the race, I believe around 8, 16, and 22. And everyone I've talked to, they said that's insane. I needed to have probably at least double that. So the main takeaway was that I did not fuel properly. And going into the next marathon, whether that be Boston or one before that, I will be doing more research into what people have done in the past for fueling.
Yeah, I think that's pretty consistent with what I've heard, which is it's all effort based. So if you're running at a super high effort, you're going to need more carbs than if someone is running at a slightly lower effort. And it has nothing to do with necessarily time. But like you were saying, yeah, you probably needed closer to like 6 gels.
And I also think that, I don't know this, but I'm wondering if it has to do as well with like how you train. And like I have a friend, one of my friends from undergrad, Ben Fleischer. He was a 8 flat 3K guy in college, and he's now a 219 marathoner. And in talking with him, I think I kind of followed his fueling strategy, but I'm also not running 100 miles a week.
That's fair. And also I've heard too, you need to like train your gut to absorb that many carbs all at once too, which is, again, part of the training, part of the whole process. It's really an evolution. Running a marathon is never just like a one and done type of thing. If you plan on doing multiple, it's always an iterative approach of, okay, what worked this time, what didn't work, how can I improve it, that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm excited to see you perform in your next marathon. I'm sure it's going to be just as enjoyable, if not more so.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I am super proud of you for finishing.
Thank you.
I've been there. I know how hard it is to finish when every fiber of your being is telling you to stop.
I'm proud of you too, Brian.
Oh, I appreciate that. Next marathon, goal, negative split.
That's a good
You and
goal.
me both. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Sound good?
I'm down.
You heard it here first, folks. Civ interview on the Zone 2 podcast. So we're talking about things that we do differently. I 100% agree. Nutrition was something I feel like I got wrong. I look forward to really focusing on that through my next training cycle and coming into race day. Another important aspect of race day success is what you have on your feet. Aidan, let's talk about the shoes. I want to hear what you were wearing when you were running on the track. I want to hear about what you were training in. I want to hear about what you raced in. Talk us through it.
Let's talk shoes. Race day for the marathon, I was wearing some Nike Vaporflies. No idea which one, but they were at least 2 years old because I got them at an outlet store on spring break my senior year. Massive discount. It was a big win. Collegiately, I was a Nike Dragonfly user, as was potentially, I have no idea the stat, 90% of the NCAA.
Someone at Nike's making a lot of money on that sale.
Yeah, for real. Not sponsored. Not sponsored.
Not sponsored. Well, not yet.
Not yet.
We'll see.
And then every day, day-to-day training, I'm a Brooks guy. I'm a big fan of the Brooks Hyperion for everyday running, which is definitely a faster shoe, not a whole lot of cushion. But I like a more minimal shoe. My go-to long run shoe was the Brooks Hyperion Max.
Is the Brooks Glycerin, is that a thing?
That's the more cushy, like the
Yeah.
Yeah, the Glycerin Max is the big.
Yeah, the
thick
Glycerin
one.
Max is like the Hoka, like.
Yeah. The Hoka killer.
Yeah, exactly.
Not actually though.
the Hyperion Max, more padding, and it has a plastic plate.
Okay, nice. So it's a
Yeah.
little snappier.
A little snappier.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Would you ever? Are there any shoes that you're dying to try? We can make it happen. No, I don't. No, we can't. It'd be cool if we could, though.
New partnership.
With who? Yeah, if you can make it happen, we need to get Aidan some shoes. This man is barefoot. He walked here. No, he's not. That's
Kate's a big fan of the barefoot movement.
Aidan, how did you like the Vaporflies for race day? At one point, Francis and I were talking about, and I think we were doing some research about the super shoes. Francis learned that some of the premium foam in these super shoes actually has a shelf life and it can expire. You said that that was your first time running in them was race day. I'm curious how they felt for you race day, if you felt like the hype that you had heard about the Vaporfly lived up to your expectations, or if maybe you're running on a pair of expired shoes.
I absolutely might have been. I have no idea. That was actually one of the thoughts that went through my head pre-race was, well, what if these are? But I do think that in any case, the full carbon plate helped with the snappiness and definitely like energy return during the first half of the race, at least. Felt great. But cannot lie, had some pretty gnarly blisters at the end. But I think that's just it's a part of the process.
I also think when I say shelf life, it's not like you hit 2 years and all of a sudden your shoes explode.
Right.
It's like, it's like 90% as efficient or something, or like 60%. So it's still, and it's such a responsive foam in the first place that it's like, okay, it's still going to be better than an everyday trainer regardless.
Yeah, but I've heard that. And it was something that crossed my mind.
Yeah. It's in their best interest, though, I feel like, the shoe companies, to have this foam that only lasts for, X amount of miles or X amount of time. And then it's like, oh, you have to buy another pair of $200 shoes. Oh, guess you're going to have to do it. Or like those new Adidas Evo Pro ones. And then I think the Evo Pro 2s just came out or are about to come out. And those, one, cost $500 a pair, which is crazy. And two, you can only wear them for one race.
What?
Yep.
That's insane.
They're like disposable shoes.
Well, like you're not allowed to wear them?
No, you can wear them, but it's like they're done.
Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah. Well, Aidan, I had a great time talking. I had a great time sitting out on the front porch on this wonderful Sunday afternoon talking to you about running. And I'm excited to do a heck of a lot more running with you this summer. It's going to be really, really, really nice. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, thanks for sharing your story and all of your wealth of knowledge with us.
This has been absolutely lovely. Thank you for having me.
Just to reiterate what Francis said, it's been an absolute pleasure. Super stoked to see what's coming up for you next. You think you got a fall race coming up?
Next race is going to be Cambridge Half, I think.
Very cool. And then you can celebrate that afternoon with the pie bake-off.
The pie bake-off. I am so excited.
I'm excited for you. And if you're listening, you should be excited too. If you are running the Cambridge, Massachusetts Half Marathon, November 2nd, you really oughta. That afternoon, I will be hosting a pie bake-off. And you should bake a pie, and then you come and you eat all the pie you want. Make an appetite, get it going. It's going to be good.
Word on the streets, the event of the year, folks.
People are saying it. It's only May. I don't even know. I don't know. But Aidan, thanks so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure. And Francis, it's been a pleasure sitting out here on your front porch. Thanks for sharing your space with us. Folks, we hope that listening, you feel like you're sitting out here in the sun with us. Light breeze on our face. Sun is out. The world is healing. I love springtime. So we end every episode with a fun fact. Before we get there, if you liked today's episode, you liked what Aidan had to say, you liked what Francis or I had to say on the off chance, make sure you hit that 5-star review button. You can leave a comment. Find us on Instagram at the Zone 2 Podcast. And you can also catch our link tree there, and you'll find a link to subscribe to a weekly newsletter right to your inbox. Before we take off, Francis, what's your fun fact?
So I guess in honor of this beautiful, warm spring weather we're experiencing, I have an actual fact about snowflakes, which I think is kind of interesting. The world's largest snowflake ever discovered was recorded at a whopping 15 inches in diameter and 8 inches thick, and it fell at Fort Coe in Montana, USA in January of 1887. Could you imagine getting hit by that snowflake? I think it would kill you. Do you think those guys were making it up? I think they were making it up. Yeah, it's on the internet though,
they were like, it melted. Sorry guys.
I swear it was massive, though. You gotta believe me. This is also before photography, so
Yeah.
I don't believe them.
Thank you all for listening to the Zone 2 podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on Instagram at the Zone 2 podcast. You can catch new episodes wherever you get your podcasts.